You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Governance and enterprise risk management, often shortened to ERM, form the backbone of how organizations make disciplined cloud security decisions. Governance provides the rules, oversight, and accountability mechanisms that guide behavior, while ERM ensures those decisions fall within the organization's defined appetite for risk. Together, they ensure that cloud adoption is not a free-for-all, but a managed journey. The purpose of this framework is to make choices predictable, defensible, and aligned with business priorities. Without governance, policies remain inconsistent and fragmented. Without ERM, risks are managed reactively rather than strategically. In combination, they act like navigation instruments for a ship. Governance provides the compass and rules of the sea, while ERM ensures the ship stays within safe waters. By studying these principles, professionals learn how to align cloud security with organizational goals while balancing innovation and caution responsibly. Governance, risk, and compliance, commonly referred to as GRC, coordinates policies, controls, oversight, and reporting across stakeholders. Governance sets expectations through policies, risk management identifies and treats uncertainties, and compliance ensures alignment with external and internal requirements. In cloud environments, GRC provides the framework that prevents drift into shadow IT, unmanaged exceptions, or inconsistent standards. For example, governance may require encryption, risk management identifies vulnerabilities in unencrypted systems, and compliance audits verify whether encryption is actually implemented. GRC is like a tripod. Each leg supports balance, but all three must work together to maintain stability. Without governance, policies lack clarity. Without risk management, threats remain unchecked. Without compliance, controls go unverified. Cloud professionals need GRC as a coherent system that transforms scattered security activities into coordinated assurance, ensuring decisions are not only made, but also monitored and measured against risk appetite. The risk appetite statement is a cornerstone of ERM, articulating the level and types of risk an organization is willing to accept in pursuit of its objectives. It is not a technical document but a business declaration, often approved by the board, that provides direction for all risk decisions. For example, a company may state that it accepts moderate financial risk to pursue growth, but has zero tolerance for violations of privacy laws. In cloud, this statement influences choices such as adopting multi-region redundancy, outsourcing sensitive data, or investing in premium security services. The statement acts like a diet plan. It sets boundaries for acceptable consumption and indulgence, guiding daily choices. Without a clear risk appetite, decisions are inconsistent, with some teams accepting risks others would reject. Articulating appetite gives consistency, allowing technical teams to align configurations and controls with leadership's intent. Risk tolerance thresholds translate the broad appetite statement into measurable limits. These thresholds may be quantitative, such as defining maximum downtime in hours, or qualitative, such as describing acceptable levels of reputational harm. In cloud, thresholds might include recovery time objectives for key systems or acceptable percentages of unpatched vulnerabilities. Tolerance thresholds act like speed limits. Appetite may allow for driving fast, but thresholds specify the maximum safe speed on a given road. They create clarity for decision-makers, providing measurable points where risks must be escalated or treated. For example, if vulnerability remediation exceeds 30 days, it may breach tolerance and trigger management review. Without thresholds, appetite statements remain aspirational rather than actionable. With them, organizations gain a practical yardstick to measure risk exposure and enforce accountability across teams and services consistently. A policy hierarchy structures governance into layers of clarity. At the top, policies set broad principles, such as requiring strong authentication for all systems. Beneath them, standards define specific requirements, like mandating multi-factor authentication and particular cryptographic algorithms. Procedures provide detailed steps to implement these standards, while guidelines offer recommended practices for flexibility. This hierarchy ensures that high-level intent translates into implementable actions without ambiguity. In cloud, policy hierarchy prevents confusion when adopting new services, as every layer is mapped to control objectives and responsible owners. It functions like an organization chart. Executives set strategy, managers define processes, and staff execute tasks. Without hierarchy, policies risk being too vague or too detailed, frustrating teams and weakening compliance. Structured layering ensures policies are both actionable and auditable, forming a backbone for governance that scales across services and geographies. Cloud policy scope defines the boundaries of governance. Effective policies must clarify whether they apply to identities, networks, data, applications, or provider services, and how these are integrated into oversight. For instance, identity policies may cover human and machine accounts, while network policies specify segmentation and logging requirements. Data policies address classification, encryption, and retention, while application policies require secure development practices. Provider services, such as storage or compute, must also fall within scope to prevent unmanaged gaps. Cloud scope is like the boundaries of a sports field. Clear lines ensure the game is played fairly, without disputes about what is in or out of play. If scope is not well defined, teams may assume certain systems or providers are excluded, creating blind spots. Establishing scope ensures that policies truly cover the full environment, preventing fragmented governance. Control objectives act as the bridge between requirements and practice. They translate legal, contractual, and business needs into implementable demands. For example, a legal requirement for data confidentiality becomes an objective to enforce encryption in storage and transit. A contractual SLA for uptime becomes an objective to monitor availability and configure redundancy. Control objectives simplify complexity by focusing on outcomes rather than technical minutiae. They are like destination points on a map. They tell you where you must arrive even if routes differ. In cloud, control objectives prevent confusion when new technologies emerge, ensuring that intent-protecting data, ensuring reliability, reducing risk remains consistent across tools. They also form the basis for audits, since auditors test whether objectives are met, not merely whether policies exist. Objectives ground governance in measurable, defensible outcomes. Risk identification catalogs threats, vulnerabilities, and assets, always considering their business impact. In cloud contexts, threats may include misconfigured storage, insider misuse, or regional outages. Vulnerabilities could be outdated software, excessive permissions, or unpatched APIs. Assets range from customer data to application workloads and brand reputation. By cataloging risks systematically, organizations avoid blind spots and ensure coverage across domains. This process resembles inventorying valuables in a home. Until you know what you have and where weaknesses lie, you cannot protect effectively. Risk identification also contextualizes assets, recognizing that some carry greater importance than others. For instance, losing a development database is less critical than losing a production customer database. Without systematic identification, risk management becomes reactive and incomplete. With it, organizations lay the groundwork for structured analysis, prioritization, and treatment in line with governance and ERM goals. Risk analysis takes identified risks and evaluates their likelihood and impact. This step applies consistent scales, such as high, medium, low, or numerical scoring, to create comparable results. In cloud, analysis might determine that misconfigured access controls have a high likelihood but medium impact, while a major provider outage has low likelihood but very high impact. Documenting assumptions is crucial to avoid hidden biases, such as underestimating insider threats because they have not yet occurred. Risk analysis is like weather forecasting. It does not guarantee accuracy, but provides a structured basis for planning. Consistent methods allow risks to be compared across systems and portfolios, enabling prioritization. Without structured analysis, organizations may focus on loud but low-impact risks while ignoring quiet but catastrophic ones. Analysis ensures rational allocation of resources, reinforcing ERM and governance structures. Risk treatment options represent the strategic choices organizations make once risks are analyzed. Options typically include avoid, reduce, transfer, or accept. Avoidance means discontinuing risky activities altogether, such as declining to store sensitive data in unregulated jurisdictions. Reduction implements controls to mitigate impact or likelihood, like enabling encryption or segmentation. Transfer shifts risk through mechanisms like insurance or outsourcing. Acceptance acknowledges risk within appetite and tolerance, often documented with executive approval. These options are like responses to a flooded road. You may reroute, build a bridge, buy flood insurance, or drive through knowing the risk. In cloud, treatment decisions must be assigned to accountable owners, ensuring responsibility is clear. Documenting choices prevents hindsight disputes and ensures alignment with governance. Treatment transforms risk analysis into practical action, linking abstract scores to concrete organizational responses. Key risk indicators, or KRIs, measure proximity to risk thresholds. They are early warning metrics that show whether risks are trending toward tolerance limits. For example, a rising number of privileged access exceptions may signal increasing exposure. In cloud, KRIs might include percentage of unencrypted storage buckets, average time to remediate vulnerabilities, or failed login attempts. KRIs are like dashboard gauges. They don't guarantee breakdowns, but they show when systems are under stress. By monitoring KRIs, governance bodies can intervene before risks breach tolerance. These indicators bring risk management into daily operations, making appetite and thresholds visible to practitioners. Without KRIs, risk oversight becomes reactive, identifying problems only after incidents occur. With them, organizations gain foresight, aligning operational monitoring with strategic governance. KRIs are vital for continuous assurance and for bridging the gap between policy intent and technical realities. Exception management provides a structured way to handle deviations from policy. Sometimes business needs require temporary departures, such as deploying a system without full controls during urgent development. Exception processes require documentation of scope, justification, expiration, and compensating controls. Executive approval ensures visibility and accountability. In cloud, exceptions might include allowing broader network access for a migration period, provided logging and monitoring are enhanced. This process resembles borrowing a library book past its due date, allowed but only with records and limits. Exception management prevents silent drift from policy, ensuring deviations are controlled rather than hidden. It also provides learning opportunities, as recurring exceptions may indicate policies are impractical and need revision. By managing exceptions transparently, organizations balance flexibility with discipline, maintaining trust in governance while enabling agility. Governance bodies formalize decision-making by establishing structures such as steering committees and change advisory boards. These groups bring together stakeholders from business, IT, security, and compliance to review policies, exceptions, and major initiatives. They ensure no single team dictates policy unilaterally. For example, a change advisory board may review proposed cloud migrations to confirm risk assessments and readiness. Governance bodies function like corporate boards. They provide oversight, ensure alignment, and arbitrate conflicts. Without them, decisions may be fragmented or biased, undermining governance. With them, organizations gain collective accountability, transparency, and inclusiveness in risk management. These bodies also strengthen communication, ensuring that executive risk appetite statements translate into operational practices. Establishing governance forums ensures cloud policies are not just top-down mandates, but collaborative frameworks reflecting diverse perspectives and expertise. Policy as code represents a modern evolution of governance. Instead of relying on manual reviews, organizations encode policy requirements directly into automated checks within pipelines and runtime environments. For example, infrastructure provisioning may fail automatically if storage is not encrypted or if resources are deployed in disallowed regions. Policy as code is like embedding building codes into construction tools. Measurements and tolerances are enforced automatically. This automation ensures consistency, reduces human error, and accelerates compliance. In cloud environments, where speed and scale challenge traditional oversight, policy as code keeps governance relevant. It also produces audit artifacts, since every failed or passed check is logged. By embedding governance into automation, organizations align developer agility with compliance requirements, ensuring policies are not bypassed for speed. Policy as code transforms governance from paper documents into operational reality. Culture and training form the human foundation of governance and risk management. Policies and tools are ineffective if people do not understand them or see their value. Training programs build role-appropriate knowledge, ensuring employees know how to operate within policies and risk appetite. For instance, developers may need training on secure coding aligned to policy standards, while managers need awareness of risk reporting responsibilities. Culture reinforces this by rewarding compliance and embedding governance into daily behavior. It is like workplace safety. Signs and equipment matter, but culture workers looking out for one another prevents accidents. In cloud, where speed and autonomy are prized, culture must show that governance is an enabler, not a roadblock. By investing in training and culture, organizations transform compliance from a box-checking exercise into a shared commitment. People become active participants in governance rather than passive subjects. Assurance and internal audit provide the final layer of validation. These functions evaluate whether controls are operating as intended and whether policies are achieving their objectives. Internal audits may review evidence, perform walkthroughs, and recommend remediation for gaps. Assurance adds credibility, showing that governance is not only designed but also tested in practice. This is similar to medical checkups, verifying that lifestyle habits are producing actual health benefits. In cloud, assurance ensures that policy as code, monitoring, and exception management are working reliably. Findings from audits are not punishments, but learning opportunities, feeding back into improved policies and training. Assurance closes the loop in governance, ensuring the system is self-correcting and continuously improving. Without it, governance risks becoming theoretical rather than effective. Assurance demonstrates maturity, proving that governance structures deliver on their promises of resilience and accountability. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. The Risk Register is the living document that organizes and tracks identified risks. Each entry includes a description of the risk, the owner responsible for management, the chosen treatment strategy, residual risk after treatment, and the cadence for review. In cloud environments, the register might list risks like unauthorized access, third-party outages, or misconfigurations, each tied to business impact. Residual risk acknowledges that controls reduce but rarely eliminate exposure. The register functions much like a patient health chart. It captures current status, treatment history, and scheduled follow-ups. Without a structured register, organizations may forget about accepted or mitigated risks, leaving them to drift unattended. By maintaining this record, governance bodies can review progress, hold owners accountable, and ensure risk posture remains transparent. The Risk Register transforms abstract conversations into a concrete management tool that provides continuity across teams and leadership. Scenario analysis and tabletop exercises bring risk management out of theory and into practice. Scenario analysis models plausible high-impact failures, such as a regional cloud outage or large-scale credential compromise, to estimate organizational consequences. Tabletop exercises then simulate these scenarios in discussion-based settings, asking teams how they would respond. For example, an exercise might simulate ransomware spreading through a cloud environment, testing decision-making under pressure. These activities expose gaps in policies, reveal untested assumptions, and strengthen collaboration among stakeholders. They are like fire drills. The goal is not to predict every emergency but to practice readiness in the face of disruption. By combining scenario analysis with tabletop exercises, organizations validate whether policies and risk treatments are sufficient, while also improving team confidence. The process ensures governance frameworks can withstand real-world complexity rather than remaining academic. Quantitative risk methods add financial context to decision-making by estimating potential loss exposure. Models like factor analysis of information risk, or FAIR, assign monetary values to probable loss events, allowing organizations to compare risks and investments. For instance, the expected annual loss from cloud downtime may be quantified at $2 million, while investing $500,000 in redundancy reduces this to $500,000. Such analysis enables rational comparison of whether to fund controls or purchase insurance. Quantitative methods are like actuarial models in insurance. They translate uncertainty into dollar terms for clearer evaluation. In cloud governance, they help prioritize investments, ensuring resources address risks with the highest economic impact. While models rely on assumptions, they provide structured transparency and accountability. Quantification ensures risk appetite and tolerance are not only conceptual but linked to measurable business outcomes. Third-party risk management evaluates the security and compliance posture of providers and partners. Since cloud operations inherently depend on external entities, organizations must ensure vendors meet agreed standards. Due diligence often involves reviewing society reports, ISO certifications, penetration test results, and regulatory attestations. Continuous monitoring extends oversight beyond onboarding, tracking incidents, or compliance drift over time. For example, a provider's data breach must trigger reassessment of its suitability. This practice is like vetting subcontractors in construction. Their performance directly affects the safety of the final structure. Without vendor oversight, organizations risk inheriting weaknesses they cannot directly control. Effective third-party risk management integrates contracts, technical monitoring, and governance reviews to maintain trust across the supply chain. It ensures that reliance on partners strengthens rather than undermines resilience. Segregation of duties is a governance safeguard that reduces conflicts of interest and concentrates accountability. In policy development, authors, implementers, and approvers should be separate individuals or groups. This prevents one person from designing, approving, and benefiting from a control without oversight. In cloud contexts, segregation may also mean ensuring administrators cannot simultaneously approve financial quotas and implement technical controls. The principle mirrors financial auditing, where cash handlers cannot also reconcile ledgers. Without segregation, governance risks collapse into rubber stamping, eroding credibility. With it, organizations distribute responsibility and create built-in checks against abuse or error. Segregation of duties demonstrates maturity by embedding accountability into structure. It reassures regulators and stakeholders that governance is not a paper exercise, but a rigorously applied discipline. Metrics and dashboards provide the visibility needed to manage governance and risk effectively. Metrics might track control coverage, exception aging, audit closure rates, or emerging risk trends. Dashboards consolidate these indicators into visual formats accessible to executives and technical staff alike. For instance, a dashboard might display the number of unencrypted storage buckets, color-coded against tolerance thresholds. These tools function like cockpit instruments for pilots. They turn abstract policy adherence into actionable awareness. Without metrics, governance decisions rely on anecdote or intuition, which erode confidence. By presenting data consistently, dashboards enable real-time decisions and long-term trend analysis. They also support board-level oversight, linking operational detail to strategic objectives. Metrics and dashboards transform risk management from reactive reporting into proactive, data-driven governance that adapts to evolving environments. Strategic alignment ensures that cloud initiatives support business objectives while respecting risk appetite. Governance cannot be effective if it operates in isolation from corporate goals. For example, if a business objective is rapid international expansion, policies must balance speed with data residency requirements. Strategic alignment ties projects to budgets, metrics, and risk tolerance, ensuring that innovation is guided rather than hindered by governance. This is like city planning. Growth is encouraged, but within zoning rules that preserve safety and order. By aligning governance with strategy, organizations prevent security teams from being seen as blockers and instead position them as enablers. Alignment ensures that every control and policy contributes to business value, reinforcing the principle that governance exists to serve objectives, not simply to restrict. Continuous monitoring brings governance into daily cloud operations. Tools such as Cloud Security Posture Management, or CSPM, automatically validate configurations against policy, detecting drift or misconfigurations in real time. Logs and alerts provide evidence, feeding back into governance reviews. Continuous monitoring ensures that policy enforcement is not limited to point-in-time audits, but operates as a live process. It is similar to smoke detectors in buildings. Instead of waiting for annual inspections, they provide constant vigilance. In cloud, where environments change rapidly, continuous monitoring is essential to ensure controls remain intact. It reduces manual burden, accelerates response, and provides defensible evidence for audits. Continuous monitoring operationalizes governance, making assurance a continuous reality rather than an episodic event. Issue management ensures findings from audits, monitoring, or incidents are tracked to closure. Each issue is assigned an owner, a due date, evidence requirements, and verification steps. This structured workflow prevents risks from lingering unresolved. For example, if monitoring reveals unsecured storage, an issue is logged, assigned, and tracked until encryption is applied and validated. Issue management resembles task tracking in project management. Visibility and accountability drive completion. Without such systems, issues may accumulate or be forgotten, eroding governance credibility. Strong issue management integrates with dashboards, allowing leadership to see progress and bottlenecks. By requiring evidence for closure, the system ensures remediation is real rather than symbolic. Effective issue management demonstrates that governance is more than words. It is a cycle of identification, action, and verification. Risk communication frameworks provide concise, structured narratives for executives, boards, and regulators. Technical jargon must be translated into business impacts, probabilities, and mitigation strategies. For instance, rather than describing, quote, S3 bucket misconfigurations, risk reports may frame the issue as potential exposure of customer data with high reputational impact. Frameworks such as heat maps, traffic light indicators, and financial impact estimates support this translation. Risk communication is like interpreting a medical report for patients. The science remains, but the language shifts to ensure understanding. Clear communication builds trust, enabling leadership to make informed decisions about appetite, budgets, and strategies. Poor communication, by contrast, leads to misunderstandings and misaligned expectations. By establishing frameworks, organizations ensure risk discussions are consistent, accessible, and actionable across diverse audiences. Regulatory change management ensures governance remains current in the face of evolving legal landscapes. New rules, such as artificial intelligence oversight or expanded data residency laws, must be tracked, analyzed, and integrated into policies. Structured processes assign ownership, assess impact, and update documentation. For example, if a jurisdiction mandates stricter breach notification timelines, contracts and policies must adapt. This is like updating roadmaps when new highways open. Navigation must reflect reality to remain useful. Without regulatory change management, compliance quickly lags behind law, exposing organizations to penalties. Proactive adaptation demonstrates maturity and reassures regulators that governance is dynamic. It also avoids last-minute scrambles when laws take effect. Regulatory change management keeps governance relevant, resilient, and credible in rapidly shifting environments. Performance risk balance acknowledges that security controls can slow delivery, while unchecked speed increases risk. Concepts like error budgets and service-level objectives quantify how much risk is acceptable before delivery pace must slow. For example, if too many security exceptions accumulate, projects may pause until remediation occurs. This balance is like athletics. Pushing speed without rest risks injury, while excessive caution prevents performance. In cloud, aligning delivery metrics with risk metrics ensures sustainable velocity. Governance becomes a partner to innovation, not an obstacle. By measuring trade-offs explicitly, organizations avoid cultural divides between engineering and compliance. Performance risk balance provides a shared language, allowing teams to negotiate priorities without compromising safety or progress. Lessons learned from incidents and audits ensure governance evolves. After disruptions or compliance failures, organizations must review what went wrong, assign causes, and update policies, standards, and training. This learning cycle prevents recurrence and embeds resilience. For instance, if an audit reveals recurring exceptions, policies may be refined or training expanded. Lessons learned resemble course corrections in navigation. Errors are expected, but failing to adjust ensures repeated mistakes. Embedding feedback into governance demonstrates maturity and builds trust with regulators and customers. It also transforms audits and incidents from punitive experiences into opportunities for growth. Organizations that institutionalize learning ensure that governance remains adaptive and effective in changing environments. Documentation and traceability preserve governance decisions, assumptions, and mappings from requirements to controls. Contracts, policies, risk assessments, and audit findings are interconnected, and traceability ensures these links are explicit. For example, a policy requiring encryption may trace back to GDPR requirements and forward to monitoring controls. This chain creates defensibility, allowing organizations to show not only what was done but why. Documentation is like a family tree. It shows lineage and relationships across generations. Without it, governance becomes opaque and difficult to explain. With it, organizations can demonstrate accountability to auditors, regulators, and executives. Traceability strengthens confidence, proving governance is deliberate and evidence-based. In cloud, where complexity multiplies, clear documentation ensures that governance remains coherent and verifiable. From an exam perspective, Domain 6's governance and risk elements test the ability to align ERM artifacts, policy enforcement, and continuous assurance in cloud contexts. Candidates must connect appetite statements to tolerance thresholds, understand policy hierarchies, and recognize how control objectives map requirements into operations. Questions may test understanding of tools like risk registers, KRIs, and policy as code, or probe responses to scenarios where exceptions or third-party risks arise. Success lies in reasoning about how governance is operationalized, not just recalling definitions. Exam relevance highlights that governance is not static paperwork, but a dynamic system linking law, risk, and operations. Mastery requires seeing the big picture: how policies, risk frameworks, and continuous monitoring work together to keep cloud adoption lawful, efficient, and resilient. In conclusion, governance and ERM provide the structure that transforms cloud adoption from ad hoc activity into a disciplined, strategic program. Risk appetite and tolerance define boundaries, while policies, hierarchies, and control objectives translate them into practice. Continuous monitoring, metrics, and issue management keep governance alive, while lessons learned and regulatory change management ensure adaptation. By aligning governance with business strategy, organizations avoid conflict between innovation and compliance. The outcome is safe, auditable operations that balance speed with security. This integration proves that governance is not a brake, but a steering wheel guiding cloud adoption within safe limits. Clear policies, measured risk appetite, and automated assurance make cloud operations not only lawful but also sustainable, reinforcing trust with regulators, customers, and executives alike. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.